He stood at that podium less than 2 weeks ago, chest out, voice booming, and told the entire United States Congress that gas was below $2.30 a gallon. He called it proof of his golden age. He called it his victory. The room erupted in applause. And then, 4 days later, he launched the biggest American military assault since the Iraq War. Today, gas is hitting $3.50 a gallon and climbing. Oil briefly touched $120 a barrel. His own base is calling him a traitor. His own party's pollsters are whispering the word disaster behind closed doors. And the question that no one in Washington can answer right now is this: did Donald Trump just make the biggest political miscalculation of his entire career? Stay right here, because in the next several minutes, you are going to understand exactly how and why the war Trump started to look powerful may be the very thing that destroys his political legacy. If this is your first time on this channel, welcome. We break down power, politics, and the decisions that shape our world. Hit subscribe right now, because what we are about to walk through is one of the most important political stories of 2026. Let's go. February 28th, 2026. American and Israeli jets fill the sky over Iran. Explosions light up Tehran. The supreme leader of the Islamic Republic is killed. Donald Trump gets on camera and declares it a success. He calls it Operation Epic Fury. He says it is going perfectly. He promises cheap gas, a safer world, and a stronger America. And then reality begins to arrive. Not from Iran, not from the Middle East, from Trump's own voters, from his own media allies, from his own party, and from every single gas station in America. Let's start with the numbers, because the numbers are brutal. Just 29% of Americans approve of the strikes on Iran, and 2/3 of the country, including 44% of Republicans themselves, expect gas prices to keep rising, according to a Reuters and Ipsos poll conducted this week. Bloomberg. Read that again. Nearly half of his own party thinks this war is going to keep making their lives more expensive. That is not a political headache. That is a political emergency. Trump's job approval is sitting at 44%, with 54% of voters disapproving of his performance as president. But the number that should terrify every Republican strategist in Washington is this one. 62% of registered voters disapprove of how Trump is handling inflation and the cost of living, Al Jazeera. 62%, and that number was already underwater before the war started. Now think about the timing. The interim elections are in November. Democrats need to flip just 3 Republican-held seats to take the majority. And every single day that this war continues, every single day that those gas prices stay elevated, Democrats have a campaign ad writing itself in real time, at every corner, on every street, in every American city and town in this country. Republican strategist Jacob Perry put it in terms that no spin doctor can argue with. You can't hide gas prices. You can lie about all this other stuff and claim everything is fake news, but there's a giant sign on every street corner saying how bad things are. Literally every commute to work is a reminder. CNN. That is the trap Trump walked himself into, and the door is closing behind him. If you are finding this analysis valuable, do me a favor right now and like this video. Share it with someone who wants to understand what is actually happening in American politics beyond the noise. It helps this channel reach more people who care about the real story. Now, let's go deeper. Because here's what makes this situation truly extraordinary. This is not just a war that is unpopular with Democrats or independents. This war has cracked open a fracture inside the MAGA movement itself, a fracture that many analysts believed was impossible just a few months ago. Since the first strikes, Trump's actions in Iran have faced stark public criticism from some of the most popular voices in MAGA media who helped boost his 2024 campaign, ranging from longtime advisor Steve Bannon to Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly. Since the first strikes, Trump's actions in Iran have faced stark public criticism from some of the most popular voices in MAGA media who helped boost his 2024 campaign, ranging from longtime advisor Steve Bannon to Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who had previously been one of Trump's most loyal allies, called the escalation something the average Republican voter does not recognize as a priority, saying she doesn't know anyone in her district who even thinks about Iran. Charlie Kirk, the conservative activist and Turning Point USA co-founder, also publicly criticized the push for regime change in Iran in the months before his assassination in September. These are not obscure voices. These are the architects of the modern MAGA movement, and they are publicly breaking with the president over a war he told them he would never start. When Trump ran for election in 2024, he repeatedly emphasized that he had been the first president since Jimmy Carter who didn't get the United States involved in a new armed conflict. "I'm not going to start wars, I'm going to stop wars," he assured the nation in his victory speech on election night. Just over 1 year later, the president has now authorized the use of force in 7 different countries during his second term. 7 countries in barely over a year. And now he's fighting a full-scale war against Iran, which he told his base he had already neutralized with Operation Midnight Hammer back in June 2025, when he claimed his strikes had obliterated Iran's nuclear weapons program. 4 days after his State of the Union, where he claimed to have ended 8 wars, he announced major new combat operations against the same country he said he had already defeated. The contradiction is not subtle, and his base noticed it immediately. The splits have driven concerns among Trump allies that the backlash could eventually spread to his broader base. Those troubling dynamics are only likely to worsen as the death toll rises and the risk of a wider regional war remains front and center. Matthew Bartlett, a Republican strategist and former Trump State Department official, was direct. "No one thinks this war is popular. At best, this is a distraction from the priority of the economy, but at worst, this could be a political disaster, and it could be a disaster for generations in Iran and for the Republican Party." A disaster for generations from a Republican strategist. That is not opposition talking. That is a warning from inside the tent. Now let's talk about the economic dimension, because here is where Trump's political vulnerability becomes almost impossible to manage. Less than 2 weeks ago, Trump stood before Congress and boasted about cheap gas. Now, the national average for a gallon of regular gasoline hit $3.50 a gallon on Monday, up nearly 50 cents in a single week and 58 cents from a month ago. Oil prices for West Texas Intermediate briefly surged past $100 a barrel before settling lower. The speed of the increase is striking. And here's the detail that makes this politically devastating. Trump didn't just benefit from low gas prices quietly. He made them his signature, his crown jewel, his living proof that he was better for working Americans than any president in recent memory. Around Independence Day last year, the White House credited the Trump effect for gas prices hitting a 4-year low. In November, Trump told reporters, "Every price is down. The biggest price is energy. We're at almost $2 for gasoline." And in his State of the Union just weeks ago, he boasted that gas was now below $2.30 a gallon in most states, calling the previous administration's prices a disaster. That entire narrative is now burning on the altar of a war he chose to start. And when ABC News asked him directly about the surge in prices, his response told you everything you need to know about whether the White House has a real plan. Trump dismissed the higher costs entirely, telling ABC News chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce, "I think it's fine. It's a little glitch. We had to take this detour." A little glitch. 50 cents more per gallon in 7 days, $100 per barrel oil, a threatened closure of the world's most important energy choke point, a little glitch. Senior Trump aides had anticipated a brief surge in oil prices when the Iran campaign began, but the size and persistence of the market reaction caught them off guard, prompting alarm for the potential political fallout. Officials have been drawing up options ranging from easing Jones Act restrictions to deploying the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, a tool the administration had firmly ruled out just days ago. So the administration that called this a quick, clean, decisive operation is now quietly drafting emergency economic rescue plans it swore it would never need. That is not confidence. That is a political panic dressed up in a suit. Democrats are already moving. Senate Minority Leader Sam Schumer called on Trump to tap the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, stating that American families are suffering from higher prices as the effects of what he called Trump's reckless war become pain at the pump. House Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries posted, "Trump promised a golden age in America. Meanwhile, Republicans are crashing the economy." And the data suggests those attacks are landing. A new NBC News poll shows Democrats have pulled even with Republicans on the question of which party would do better dealing with the economy. Republicans' worst showing on that question in NBC News polling since December 2017. December 2017. That is not a small number. That is a historic collapse in one of Republican Party's core electoral advantages, happening in real time, in the middle of a war that the president launched without a defined exit strategy, without a clear definition of victory, and without the support of the American people. There's also real misgivings